So today I wanted to talk about grief and loss, and in my experience, both the best and worst ways to deal with it. The subject is incredibly close to my heart because just a few nights ago on New Year's Eve, I had to put my best friend and probably the love of my life, Callie, to sleep. And you might be asking why I'm even making this video. Because when I started this channel, I made a vow never to portray myself as someone who's either perfect or infallible. Everyone you admire or you look up to goes through the same type of struggles. They go through hardship, they go through loss, they go through pain, they have doubts. Instead of hiding my struggles, I choose to talk about them as I go through them. Because I truly believe that my strength and character and the successes that I've had in my life have come from my ability to face my trials and tribulations head on. And before we get into my experiences with grief, I wanted to talk about one of the most popular and common models when dealing with grief, and that is the 5 stages of grief. One of the most well-known models for understanding grief comes from the psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She introduced it in her 1969 book on death and dying, which is based on her findings of observing patterns and how patients emotionally respond to their own impending deaths. The first stage of grief is denial, which is your initial shock or disbelief, like feeling like this is not real or it's just a bad dream. The second stage is anger, which is frustration, resentment, or blame, where you're angry at the circumstances or others or even your own self. And you'll have thoughts like, I should have done more. The third stage is bargaining. You'll start running through what if scenarios, mentally negotiating for different outcomes, and thinking, like, what if I had found this disease earlier? The fourth stage is depression. And that's when the loss finally sinks in. And that's when you start to feel the deep sadness, the emptiness, and the full weight of the situation. Like when you wake up and turn over and see that your loved one is no longer there. And the last stage is acceptance. It's where you finally start to learn to live with your new reality. And you learn how to continue life while honoring their memory. And of course, with any model or rule, there are important exceptions. First and foremost, these stages are descriptive and not prescriptive. These stages or steps are being described of how a process naturally unfolds, rather than a set of rules of how it should be strictly followed. Next, these stages are not linear. They don't have to happen in a specific order. And not everybody experiences all 5 stages. And you may even move back and forth from stages. Just because you may have went through one stage doesn't mean you're not going to go through it again. And if you do this, that's okay. It's not regression. It's completely normal. This brings me to how I chose to deal with Callie's passing. We put Callie to sleep in the late afternoon of New Year's Eve. Many people reached out to me, either inviting me to come be with them or they would come and be with me so I wouldn't have to be alone on New Year's Eve, just hours after Callie's passing. But I chose to be alone. I made the decision consciously, and I did it by design. And I knew it would be harder, especially on New Year's Eve, just hours after her passing. But I did this intentionally. I wanted to begin grieving immediately. Grief is a part of the healing process, and the sooner you allow yourself to grieve, the sooner the healing process can begin. And in my experience, the deeper and the more honestly you allow yourself to grieve, the faster the real healing can happen. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience with both death and grief. I lost my mother and all my grandparents when I was just a teenager. And I lost my father and my sister while I was in flight school. And I've lost too many friends and colleagues while in the military, on missions and deployments, and sadly, even on training exercises. Throughout my life, I've dealt with grief in many different ways. I've tried them all, including the so-called manly or macho approach of suppressing your emotions, which I can tell you from vast experience, it doesn't work. With these experiences and plenty of research, I've come up with a list of what I believe are the best practices of dealing with grief. First and foremost, do not delay the grieving process. The sooner you allow yourself to grieve, the sooner the healing can begin. Suppressing grief is not strength, it's avoidance. Pushing it down doesn't make it disappear. It only guarantees that it will resurface later, and often more intensely in far less healthier ways. And while having people around you who you can lean on for support is important, it's really important to spend intentional and undistracted time alone. You need space to truly feel the loss and the grief that comes with it. And unfortunately, being around people can often distract from that and delay the process. Because at the end of the day, whoever you lost would not want you to remain stuck in sadness forever. They would want you to remember them and honor them, but continue living your life fully. because I know that's what I would want. Next is being able to talk about when it hurts. Talking about grief helps, and you will probably tear up when you do, and that's okay. I do. Pain is just proof that love even existed. And speaking about it is just another way of honoring their memory and keeping that love alive. Next, don't be afraid to cry, especially us guys. And to be honest, I probably haven't stopped crying in the last couple days. And I've definitely cried multiple times while even trying to write the outline for this video. And that's okay. Crying is not a weakness. It is the body and the mind releasing the pain that cannot be carried silently. For a long time, men have been taught that strength is suppressing the pain. I know I was. And frankly, that belief is wrong. Real strength is allowing yourself to feel this sadness fully and to be honest about the pain and to let it move through you instead of trapping it inside. And to be honest, that takes courage. Way more courage than trying to suppress it. Tears are not a failure of control. They're a part of the healing process. If you loved deeply, the grief will show up deeply. And honestly, there's nothing unmanly about that. Next is learning how to balance solitude with support. While it is good and often necessary to be able to grieve alone, don't be afraid to ask for help when the weight becomes too heavy. And there is a difference between healthy solitude and harmful isolation. If grief begins to isolate you, numb you completely, or make you feel like life is just unlivable, reaching out to somebody can be incredibly helpful because you are truly never alone. There are many people who understand what you're going through, even though if you don't feel like it. You don't have to carry this alone. And also, don't be afraid to ask for professional help either. Seeking out therapy, counseling, or even grief support are not signs of weakness. They are tools just like any training or mentorship programs, which are designed to help you navigate through the difficult terrain when the load exceeds what one person can bear. Next is to take care of your body. Grief is not just emotional, it's also physical. Your sleep will be disrupted, your appetite may change, your energy can disappear. Eat and drink even when you don't feel like it. Get outside, feel the sun on your face, breathe fresh air, just move your body. Exercise and movement help process grief and support healing, and even when motivation is at an all-time low. Next is accept that joy and grief can coexist. Laughing doesn't mean you loved less. Feeling okay for a moment doesn't dishonor the person you lost. Grief is not a measure of love, it's proof of it. Both joy and sorrow can exist at the same time. Next is to create space to honor the loss. Rituals matter. Keeping an item close, writing letters, or even lighting candles. For example, I'm having Kallie cremated, and I'm having her ashes put into a stone, which I'll wear as a necklace. And I'm having her fur set into a ring. And when I go to visit the horses and I stand in the place where she took her last breaths, and I sit there and I remember her, and this place marks where our beautiful journey together ended. Next, there is no timeline for grief. There is no schedule. There is no deadline. Take as long as you need. Everyone grieves differently, and every loss is unique. Just remember that life will continue, and the people you are mourning don't want you to suffer forever. They want you to keep going. They want you to live. They want you to find happiness again. And lastly, and probably most importantly, it's the mental fortitude and the mental framework that allows us to get through this process. And this wouldn't be one of my videos without a quote from a Stoic, and from the OG Stoic himself, Marcus Aurelius. You have power over yourself and not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Being able to mentally frame a situation in a positive light, no matter how negative the experience is how you become stronger, and it helps you to move on with life, stronger and better than you were before. Love and loss are two sides of the same coin. Everything in life eventually ends, and grief is the mark of love, not weakness. And the deepest grief comes from the greatest loves. Grief is the price we pay for love, and I would pay it 10 times over. And the love I experience with Kallie will never be overshadowed by her loss. She saved my life. I am here only because of her, and I will spend the rest of my life honoring her name. And I plan to start a charity and a foundation in her honor because I believe that she kept me alive for a reason. And I believe I'm meant to help others through difficult times. And truly, thank you everyone for their support. Making this video, writing it, and recording it has been a part of my own healing process, even though I cried through most of it. If this video helped you, please like, comment, or subscribe. Doing so helps this message reach somebody who may need it. And if you want to support the channel even further, consider becoming a member. And finally, thank you for everybody who supported Kallie through her GoFundMe and other means. Because of you all, we were able to give her the best medical care possible. And the one thing that gives me solace and peace is I did everything that I could, and she was worth it. She watched over me for 10 years, and now her watch has ended. She can finally rest.